As usual, Karen, is great to have you here. We have Karen Tumlin from the Justice Action Center, lawyer extraordinaire and incredible friend to informed immigrant. Thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure. I'm so glad to be with you, Juan, and with everyone who is joining us, and we will do our best to have a good conversation.
Amazing. Well, I know that we asked folks here on the Informed Immigrant platform to talk, to send us in their questions, and I have been overwhelmed with the amount of questions and responses that we got from folks. So before we jump into that, I just kind of wanted to set the stage, in rather quickly here, because I think that there's part of the confusion here, right? And we've been talking about this for over a year, you and I, in terms of like, DACA is under attack. There's a federal judge. We went to the Supreme Court. We won. Now we lost again. Like, I think that the whirlwind of everything that has been happening has people, rightly so, suffering from some kind of whiplash in terms of the changes to the program. So why don't we start, as to what exactly happened 2 weeks ago, and how does it impact, and how is it different, rather, from where we stood a couple of months ago?
Yeah, of course. So what happened 2 weeks ago, or on a Friday, July 16th, is we got a new court ruling in the lawsuit brought by Texas and a handful of other states challenging the legality of the DACA program. And I'm just going to be super direct. It was a bad court ruling, right? The court ruling says that in this judge's opinion, that the 2012 DACA program is unlawful, and he orders the program to end. Now, we're going to say this like many, many times. Today and right now, renewals for DACA and advanced parole for DACA are open. What has ended immediately from that court order is the ability for further processing of first-time DACA applications. So that's the basics, but we need to unpack, like, what does that really mean for renewals and advanced parole? But Juan, you asked something important. Why is this different? This is different because this ruling from the Texas judge is at the end of the lawsuit at this level of the court system. In lawyer words, it's what's called on summary judgment, which means, it happened after a couple of years of this case being started and all this discovery. So at this point, that court is done, and it will go on appeal to a court above it. That's what makes it different and more dangerous, more in need of everything that you and others have been working on to make sure we get right now in reconciliation, real permanent protections.
Absolutely. And I think, again, to kind of repeat back to what Karen said, is that what we're experiencing right now is a stoppage to all initial applications. Basically, if you're a new first-time DACA applicant, unfortunately, your application has been ordered by a federal judge to not be considered, as opposed to if you were a recurring or already admitted person to the program, like myself and a couple others that work here at Informed Immigrant, then you can continue to renew your protections. However, and I think that is also, before we get to the question and answer part, because I'm already getting some in here, what exactly did the judge say regarding, the following two elements, advanced parole and the future of renewals? Are we, are people with renewals safe forever and always, or?
Right. Okay, advanced parole first, because I love advanced parole. And if you don't love advanced parole enough, love it for our Olympian on advanced parole, who's going to be able to compete in the Olympic Games. So right now, advanced parole is open. The judge said, in his analysis, advanced parole is unlawful and needs to end. But because you don't just get advanced parole without getting DACA, you get it if you have DACA. Everything that you get with your DACA can continue. That means work authorization with your renewal and advanced parole, if you've ever had DACA. The dividing line is, if you've never had DACA, as of the date that he ruled, even if you were so far in your processing, you probably would have gotten it the following week, the judge stopped that. Are renewals safe? I think this is the hardest part, Juan. I mean, it's all hard, right? Because too many people, 78,000 of them were pending with their first-time applications the day this judge ruled. Those are, it's outrageous. Renewals, the judge said, are not safe. This is what he did. It's really weird. It's very lawyerly. He said, renewals are unlawful. I'm going to end them. But today I won't end them. And the reason is I am sending DACA 2012, the memorandum, back to the Department of Homeland Security so they can end renewals. And if they don't do it quickly enough, I, the judge, will end them. But there's no timeline on that. He didn't say what
Tomorrow.
he thinks quickly is. He didn't say tomorrow or 2 months or 6 months. And that's the great uncertainty.
It's almost as if he's telegraphing a message, right, to Congress in some regard or another, or trying to pass the buck. It's like, I'm not the bad person here. I'm just following the law. So
yeah, I mean, legally, yes, absolutely, right? Like if Congress needed any more fire lit under their proverbial seating area, this is it, right? Like, let's go, Congress, and in particular, let's go, Senate. But the legal reason is it is so much harder legally to take something away from someone. And so the judge is recognizing that, the human toll, and giving some grace period. But it isn't totally human, because if you have DACA, Juan, like you want to know how long.
Yeah.
Like, and that's, yeah, important.
Karen, say that I'm a first-time applicant, and my application is in the I got my biometrics taken. I haven't heard back from USCIS. I know that this judge said something. What exactly does that mean for me?
Yeah. Oh, first of all, if that is who you are, I am just sending you an enormous hug, because I know how arbitrary and painful this is. So what it means right now is that USCIS has taken the position that they can't do anything more on your application, even though someone like that who's done their biometrics, they were really close to hopefully being approved. I would say sit tight. I would also say, we might talk about this a little more. I am one of several people who are class counsel in a different lawsuit in New York called the Bataya case, and we are considering what, if anything, we will do in response to this order in our courtroom. And it could include trying to, fight for those adjudications to occur. So you can check out information on that and sign up for notices at DACAclassaction.org. And just, I think the last thing I would say is all of us in our advocacy hats, we need to be letting our senators know that it's unacceptable that there's about 78,000 people in that boat, and their applications need to be granted. Yeah,
very important stuff. If you're a first-time applicant, I think that there's a couple questions in here. If you qualify for DACA, but you have not applied for the program, you are not able to apply at the current moment, unfortunately, due to the federal judge's order. I see some questions about how to apply for advanced parole or how to essentially seek legal help. If you go to our website, informedimmigrant.com, or in Spanish, inmigranteinformado.com, you can see a list of resources, not just pro bono or low bono organizations that can help you, or at the same time, how to apply for advanced parole. And I can't stress this enough. I would encourage you, based on everything that we've heard so far, to seek legal counsel adequately to make sure that if you're considering advanced parole as a current DACA beneficiary, that you make sure that you get the answers and the counsel and the advice that you need.
Juan, one small correction to what you just mentioned is, if you're eligible for DACA and you had never applied before, actually you can still apply. Even the judge's order in Texas says that USCIS must accept those applications. And the reason for that is because our order in New York says they must accept the applications, right? So he honored that existing court order. But the challenging part is you need to, as Juan is saying, talk to a legal service provider, right? Make sure that your application looks good and send it in. And then you have to make this decision. Am I in a stronger position getting my application in, even though today USCIS is saying they will not schedule a biometrics appointment for a new application, for example? Could that still be a stronger position for you if the program reopens in some form down the line?
Perfect. Yeah, and I think that that's part of the hassle, not hassle, but rather like reality, right? That people really have to make tough decisions, because at the end of the day, it's also $495 that you have to, go forth and present as part of your applications. If you see me looking around, it's mainly because I'm looking at all your questions that we gathered from our poll. So thank you for sending those in. We can go ahead and get started with this part of the program. And let me see here real quick. There's a couple of questions about, whether or not I qualify if I enter the country in 2008. You can see all the requirements, whether or not you qualify for DACA, on our website as well. However, if you're a first-time applicant, you can submit your application and it will be held by USCIS, but it will not be processed. So I just want to make sure that we continue to repeat that here. Is it too early for me to renew my DACA if my DACA expires next year in 2022?
Such a good question. All right, here's the skinny on this. You can, if your DACA expires a year from now, yes, you can submit your renewal. Yes, they will accept it. This is the issue. Last we have heard from USCIS, they have in place a policy that prohibits them from granting that renewal until it is less than 150 days from expiration. Are we asking them to change that? Yes, we are. Would we love your support in doing so? Of course, because we don't know how long renewals will be safe and open under this court order. But you do need to know that you can submit even a year early. We do know there were horrible backlogs in USCIS in processing renewals that were submitted on time. And they can, in fact, process it. They say they go all the way to the final step, but they don't do the final granting until you hit day 149. And please join us in requesting that at this moment and at this time, that policy must go, because DACA recipients need to have choice and agency about whether they would rather renew now, a year out from their expiration, or wait for 150 days. That should be the choice of the DACA community.
Indeed. I want to make sure that we continue down some of these questions here in terms of, we talked about the backlog at USCIS. Is there a glimpse as to how exactly this is being maneuvered around, or is there a timeline that I should expect my application to be approved or adjudicated by?
Your renewal, right, Juan? You think that's
renewal? Excuse me. Yes.
Yeah. So the same guideline is happening right now. USCIS is saying we want you ideally to submit 150 days to 120 days from your expiration. Now, personally, if it was me, based on what I've been seeing in renewals, I would go closer to the 150 or maybe even earlier than that, because they haven't been processing them in time. And from what I've been seeing, Juan, I don't know if that's what you've been seeing too. I've been seeing friends and colleagues who submit in that 120-day window, and they're facing a gap in their DACA coverage because it was going too slow and taking 3 to 4 or even 5 or 6 months to process renewals.
Great. Yeah, I've seen all kinds of wild stories. I know that folks sometimes take to the media. My friend Ju Hong, who I grew up organizing with, went out, wrote op-eds, launched even a petition campaign, and the public pressure certainly helped. But we know that that's not the circumstance for everybody. So I can only imagine, what everybody's experiencing right now. We have a question about, is there going to be an appeal? I think towards the beginning of our program, we talked about essentially this being, one step in the, arc of litigation when it comes to DACA once again. But, is there any hint that an appeal could be essentially filed? We know that the Biden administration has also hinted at something like that.
Yes. So here, I'm going to give you the legal answer, and then I'm going to give you the real talk, what I think we need to answer. The legal answer is yes, the Biden administration is appealing. They have not filed the paperwork with the court, but they have said in writing they intend to appeal. I also would expect that the interveners who've been in court fighting on the side of DACA recipients, both MALDEF and New Jersey, would also appeal. Okay, but why haven't they filed the paperwork yet? Well, number one, they get 60 days to do so, right? And that just starts the process for going to the higher court. But the reason is the Fifth Circuit is not a place that has been hospitable to DACA. And in fact, there are two court decisions in the Fifth Circuit from the prior Texas case that ended the DACA program. And so it is really expected that that appeal is going to a place where it is going to lose. And so the real talk answer is we cannot look to that appeal to change the situation that we need changes, right? We need to be communicating that next stop in court, and we are so, of course, supportive of MALDEF, who's been fighting so long for DACA recipients, and also now the Biden administration. But what we need is everybody to get it together on reconciliation and get it done. Or we need to consider if there are other court actions if we find ourselves in a place where legislation isn't happening. But Juan, I don't know how you feel, and I'd love to know. Look, I'm a lawyer. I love court. That's not where we're supposed to win this right now. And that's not good enough for you.
Yeah. I think, I'm glad that you asked this, because as a DACA recipient myself, and as someone who has been working in the front lines of this fight for quite some time, I also know that, and you may love court, but you also know that the court doesn't go from one day to the next. This is not an Amazon Prime order that you just, submit a ticket and then it spits one back out. Appeals, you mentioned 60 days, then there's litigation, then there's decisions. If we don't win, do we appeal again? Do we need to go to the Supreme Court? How would that work? And look, folks, I think, Karen is essentially giving us essentially the answers to what we're looking for. And a lot of questions in here in terms of the submissions and also in the chat talk about, is there going to be a pathway to citizenship in the nearby future? I want to make sure that folks, without deviating too far from the program, Congress is considering what's known as a reconciliation package, and there's talks and wide support, not just from governors and representatives and mayors, but also from senators who want to see something like this included. So as Karen mentioned, one of the best ways to make your voices heard is making sure that you speak out about your story and your personal experience, because we want to make sure that if there is a legislative solution, that it goes to Congress. All right. I think we talked about this, but this continues to be a popular subject. We have a question from Cynthia X. If I have DACA, can we still apply for advanced parole even with what has happened in the judge's ruling?
Yes, Cynthia, you can apply for advanced parole, because if you have DACA, that's considered, part of the benefits of being able to renew. So work with a legal service provider, apply for that advanced parole if it is based on an urgent reason, right? For example, if you have an ill family member who you urgently need to visit abroad, make an InfoPass appointment, because that is quicker, and that's what it's for. And you should also know that the Biden administration has been clear and did issue guidance to ensure that advanced parole recipients who are outside of the country with DACA on advanced parole could return safely after the judge's ruling. So we know that that's true. We know that they've granted advanced parole since the ruling for DACA recipients. So definitely feel free to take advantage of that opportunity.
And we know that because we're also sending an Olympian with DACA right now, as of today. Thank you, Cynthia, for your question. There's a couple of additionals in here. We talked about budget reconciliation moving through the legislative process rather quickly. We talked about the delays in here. This is actually a very particular question that I may apply to some folks. Can a spouse who is a U.S. citizen sponsor a DACA recipient or help, gain them any sort of legal status? And if so, what can people do? This question comes to us from Demi Love.
Demi Love, I'm going to give you the basic answer, but you should definitely consult with a lawyer about this. The basic answer has to do with your means of entry at the time that you entered the country. So if you initially came into the country and you had some type of status, a temporary visa, a tourist visa, you can most likely qualify for a green card through your spouse. If you did not, and I'm giving you the basics, but it's always important to see a legal service provider and drill down on this. If you didn't come into the country with permission originally, then you should also talk to a lawyer about seeing if advanced parole might be right for you. DACA recipients who have left on a duly issued advanced parole and come back into the country are in a parole status, and that can sometimes allow them to get a green card from their spouse who is a US citizen after parole. So really important questions. There are options both ways, but this is something I advise you speak to a trusted legal service about in detail, about the details of your situation.
Thanks, Karen. Let's keep going on to the next one. This one's actually very important, and I think we're about to hit, some of the repeat questions. Are first-time applicants whose applications are suspended or no longer being considered in danger of deportation?
Thank you, Eleni. This is a really important question. I am happy to say that I do not believe you are in danger of deportation because we won an election and we have a different administration, right? So just to be very clear, there are firewall protections in place. They're not perfect, but they're decent between the very detailed and private information you've supplied in that first-time DACA application to USCIS and that being transferred to ICE. You can look at some information that Make the Road New York and the National Immigration Law Center put out on this because they've done a bunch of suing to get to the bottom of it. But basically there have to be very serious national security or other security concerns why that information could be transferred from your DACA application to ICE. Again, in this moment, this is something we have to call on Biden to further protect and shore up, but I feel good that that is not what that information will be transferred for. Thank you for asking, Eleni. I know that's in so many people's minds.
Yeah, especially first-time applicants who, have been counting on these protections for quite some time, and it's rather unfortunate that they've been essentially hit with this decision from this judge. Here's another advanced parole question that I've actually never seen before. How long does it take to get an answer regarding advanced parole permit? I actually, as someone who's never applied for advanced parole, don't even know the answer to this question. Nor am I a lawyer, but still.
I will tell you. Okay, there's two flavors of advanced parole. One is, like I was saying, it's an emergency, someone is very sick, or there's a funeral you need to attend. Do not just apply in. Get that info pass, go on the emergency basis. Those things can be granted in the same day, no joke, okay? But regular advanced parole for DACA recipients is for humanitarian, educational work purposes. That could be a conference you want to go for work, or a really important work meeting you need to have. It could be a study abroad program. Those things you have to fill out the application and turn it in. In the past, when we didn't have so many horrible backlogs at USCIS, we were seeing that granted in 2 months or 3 months. Right now, we've seen that taking 4 to 8 months or longer, which is crazy town. And we have been raising a big ruckus about this. I'm hoping that it'll come back down to like a 3-month period window, but that's what you need to know. What we in the advocacy community have been urging is, if the reason for your advanced parole can be considered an urgent one, use the InfoPass vehicle until these backlogs are under control.
Thanks, Karen. And so important, especially with USCIS backlogs, to keep those kind of things in mind. We talked about also using the InfoPass at USCIS if you need advanced parole to visit an elderly or sick family member abroad. There's a question in here about a renewal in a very specific case. Yepes asks about, will I be able to resubmit, I'm assuming renew, my DACA application if I have a DUI or if I recently got a DUI?
So Yepes, thank you for asking. And actually, I've seen a few similar questions popping up in the chat. So this is a question where I need you to consult with a attorney in the state where the DUI issued. Sometimes the answer is absolutely yes, that you can still resubmit with a DUI. It depends on the exact kind of DUI, the state law that you were charged under, and other specifics that you must have someone who knows that state law. So if you live in California now, but that DUI was in Arizona, they need to know Arizona law, not California law.
It's so important. Again, and I want to make sure that I make a quick plug for a lot of the things that we're talking about. If you need, and Karen keeps mentioning this, if you're in need of low bono or pro bono legal help, and you want to contact an organization that may be able to guide you in the right direction, we have trusted sources over at informedimmigrant.com. For those of you who may have a friend who may need the legal advice in Spanish or in another language, inmigranteinformado.com. and you can take a look at our directory of trusted sources and local organizations who can guide you and make sure that you get the right help without fearing that you may get misguided in here. There's a very particular question here about an individual that got, and this comes from E Duran 77. I got a 1 year employment authorization document. I received a letter saying that it won't be extended to the 2 years. What will happen next?
Got it. E Duran, thank you for writing about this. I think it says that it will be extended. You should be getting your new card that'll give you that extra year. No later than 30 days from the expiration of your current EAD. This is a protection we fought for in the Bataya case. If that does not happen, and I mean even by 1 day, you contact me individually or contact us on DACAclassaction.org and we will hook you up. So again, anyone who got a 1 year EAD, and there were tens of thousands of these issues, it has been automatically extended to 2 years, and you got that letter. But we know that's not good enough. Nobody wants to fold up a letter and put it in their wallet. 30 days, no later than 30 days before your current EAD expires, you should be getting in the mail the new one for that other year you were owed. If you moved, make sure you update your address with USCIS. That's so important.
I have a question here about the cost for advanced parole. We talked about the processing times for advanced parole a couple of minutes ago. I encourage you to make sure that you check that out when we post the video on IGTV. But in terms of cost, what is the cost affiliated with that?
You know, the form is called the I-131, and I don't remember the cost off the top of my head. It is a new cost. Don't kid yourself. Nothing is free, right? There is another fee. I just don't remember the exact dollar figure. It ain't cheap. It's 3 digits.
All right. There's a question about biometrics, actually. Lisa Nunez, 22. I received a letter about my new employment authorization document, but I never went to get my biometrics. Is this something that USCIS are doing, or should I be concerned?
Lisa, if you already had DACA, there was a period because of these here times of COVID that we're in that new biometrics were not required, and they were using your old biometrics. Even if you were a first-time applicant and you got DACA, but you had previously submitted biometrics for some other kind of application, they were using those old ones. So you don't have to be concerned. It was really helpful that USCIS used their authority when they were so backlogged to use those old biometrics and not make people take them again.
There's a question about, and this is a duplicate question that I have on my screen here. DACA renewal, I sent it in April. They told me that they are barely cases September. I think that this has to do mostly with the timeline. We see a lot of people submitting renewals early this year and they're still on hold. You know, can we just kind of glance over once again, Karen, in terms of why is this happening and what can people expect?
Absolutely. So there's 2 reasons why you might not see your renewal get processed quickly. The first has to do with how early did you submit your renewal before the expiration. There is a policy, I don't like it, I don't think Juan likes it, in place that says if you submit your renewal more than 150 days from the expiration, so maybe a year before it expires, yes, USCIS will take that in and begin processing it, but they won't grant you until you're 149 days or less from your expiration. So that's a reason why even if you submit before someone else, you might get granted later. The second reason is there are some backlogs up at USCIS, and we're finding that it's taking them longer to issue renewals than it did in the past. And for that reason, we know the advice is always to make sure you submit between 120 days and 150 days before your current DACA expires, and take that very seriously because it is taking all of that time to renew in many cases and sometimes even longer. So please don't wait until day 90 from expiration. That's really cutting it too close based on what I'm seeing with how quickly renewals are happening.
Definitely last question here before we go into a recap of everything that we've covered. If you're just joining us, we're about to wrap up our program, but I want to make sure that I squeeze in this question because it's something that some people are concerned about. If your DACA expires while you're waiting for an approval on a renewal, that's a mouthful, do you accrue unlawful presence in the United States?
You know, I have actually seen instances where if you can document that you are pending and that you submitted in adequate time, you should not accrue unlawful presence. But this is a real concern, right? And so this is a reason why folks need to really take seriously submitting in that 120 to 150 day window and document that you have done so. And of course, there is the caveat that if you are under 18, you are not going to accrue unlawful presence. That doesn't happen. Now, we have some DACA recipients that young. So if that is you, you won't accrue when you're in that younger age category. But it's really is important to submit in that 120 to 150 day period for this reason.
Thanks, Karen. And thank you, Morales, for that question. Folks, we've gone over our time. I knew there were a lot of questions, and we even extended the length of this program to make sure that we covered as much ground as we could. We talked about the judge's decision, Judge Hainan down in Southern Texas, and what it means for new applications which are currently being accepted but are not being adjudicated, meaning that they're not being processed. If you want to file a first-time application, like Karen and I discussed, it's a lot of money, $495. There's a lot of steps as to whether or not those applications will continue to be approved. So more waiting. For those of you who are wondering how much I have to wait, I have no idea, neither does Karen, but we'll continue to advocate on your behalf and keep you posted here. If you are renewing a DACA application, if you are renewing, you can go ahead and do so right now. And we advise you, as Karen has mentioned time and time again, to make sure that you take your timeline seriously. You can make sure to do so by following our guide here at informedimmigrant.com and making sure that you look at all the steps necessary for you to file your renewal. Or if you need help with your renewal, we have a list of trusted sources that are local in your community. You can see a directory of that in our website. We talked about advanced parole. It's still safe to use advanced parole, but only and if you do so under the guidance of somebody who can continue to advise you in doing so. We talked about the two different flavors of advanced parole and how to use the info pass. There's a lot of information that we covered in this video, and I want to make sure that if you have any questions about anything that may be percolating in your mind and you're just joining us right now and I'm kind of disappointed because you may not have gotten a chance to ask a question, we will post this on our channel here, and you can go back and rewind it and share it with your friends or give it to someone else who may be in need of this information. And we highly encourage you to do so, because we bring Karen onto this program not because we love her as a friend and as an ally, but also because she is one of the best experts when it comes to the subject, and we want to make sure that all of her knowledge and all of the trust that we put in her and everything that she does for us continues to reach the audiences that it needs. So please take a moment, go back and review this program, and if you find it informational, we ask you that you share with your friends right here on Instagram. You can find Karen and a lot of the most amazing work and analysis on immigration over at Justice Action Center, which is basically the hub for all of her amazing work, and we're truly, truly thankful for her to be a guest on these programs and to provide us with her expertise in here. Thank you again for watching. Karen, from the bottom of my heart, once again, it's always so fun to have you here and do these Instagram lives, even though it's on a very serious subject. I always try to put my best foot forward and give people at least some hope, because that's what we continue to hold on to. And I know that broadcasting here from Washington, D.C., I can tell you that this DACA recipient feels hopeful that at least this year we will win something, and hopefully that's a pathway towards legalization.
Thank you, Juan. So grateful to be with you. So grateful for your tireless work and hope. And yes, this is the year. No matter what, we know what we're fighting for and what we're grounded in. I'm grateful
Absolutely.
to be with you.
And I'm grateful for you, Karen. Thank you so much again. And folks, again, thank you for tuning into this special program. We extended our time here today. We'll post this on our IGTV. We'll continue the conversation. And as always, if there's an update on anything that's happening, whether it's on TPS, on DACA, or otherwise, we'll be sure to keep you posted through our page. Make sure to send us your questions or your messages through our message section. and have a good rest of your day. Talk to you soon. Thanks, Karen.
Bye. Bye, Juan.
Bye-bye.